sometimes. But these children who are secure had parents who were more often than not reliably there for them, reliably supportive, reliably caring, reliably reliable. So it's all about reliability. It's not about one-off problems, three-off problems. You know, it's not about remember that one time when you weren't there for me, or that one time when you were critical of me. That's not what this is about. We're talking about people who have reliably had presence, awareness, clarity, support. So then let's look at avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment, these are people who in their childhood have had reliable criticism, reliable harshness, reliable excessive looking at their mistakes. Yeah?
Wow.
So what they knew to be reliable, what they could always rely on, what they could always bank on, what they could guarantee basically, was that more often than not, 9 out of 10 times, they were going to get criticized. They were not going to be viewed for all the good stuff, but you know, the kind of way that I think avoidant attachment really explains that, apart from all those other things like physical abuse and things like that, you know, the avoidant attachment felt they came home with an A, and their parents asked and said, "That's good, but it's not an A+ though." Right? That's the feeling. It's good, A is good, but it's not an A+. Right? That's the feeling, and that's the feeling they have basically for the rest of their whole life. Their whole life, they're chasing that sense of, you know, just that sense of not being good enough, or it was, that's not an A, that's not an A+, that's not good enough, and here's a whoopee. All right? In which case, not just expect a sense that they're always not enough, they would also expect that they will be punished. Right? Yeah. So if there's one word that really explains the avoidant attachment, is rejection. An expectation of rejection. I cannot be seen, because if anyone sees the real me, I will be rejected.
That's very true.
Okay? So then we have the ambivalent. Then we go on to the ambivalent attachment, which some people call the dismissive anxious. No, sorry, the anxious. The other one. The other one. That's why I don't like these, because they get so confusing. We go back to front.
The anxious avoidant.
Anxious avoidant, yes. Which is no, not the anxious avoidant, the anxious dismissive. So, let's just call it ambivalent. Let's just stick to what it is. Let's just go basic research. Ambivalent attachment. So what people then have is, then they, in contrast to the avoidant attachment, and with the avoidant attachment, they feel like they have to, when they are hurt, the avoidant attachment feels they have to go away and fix themselves, because no one could possibly see what goes on there. Remember, if anyone sees what goes on for you as an avoidant, they're going to reject you. They're going to criticize you. So no one can see. Avoid, 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 hide, hide, hide. Thank you. It's me, Maria 64. Yes, anxious, ambivalent, preoccupied, and there are, do you know there are like 3 more names for that? It's me, Maria. So, right. Let's just call it ambivalent. Yes. So the ambivalent attachment, though, is the other way around. The ambivalent attachment, these children, their parents were really kind people, in that sense that they weren't tended to be overly critical at all. But these parents then instead could not regulate themselves. So these parents are the kind of parents who break down when the child is angry, who can't handle the child's emotions. When the child gets teary, the parent gets even more teary. When the child gets upset, the parent gets even more upset. When the child yells at the parent yells back. Or perhaps even the parent starts sulking and gets really sad and goes into a corner. You hurt me with your feelings, you hurt me by yelling, and so on and so forth. So these ambivalent children, they, on the other hand, start getting this sense that they are somehow they have to take care of their parents.
Oh.
These children are afraid that their parents would be overwhelmed by them unless they please their parents, unless they can take care of their parents, unless they can nurture their parents. Their parents will abandon them because they simply cannot handle them.
Yeah.
So then for these children, the ambivalent attachment, if it's one word that explains it, it's abandonment.
Okay.
And so with avoidant attachment, we had a fear of rejection. Someone will find what you have inside and they'll think it's so ugly that they'll criticize you and reject you. With the ambivalent attachment, it's this sense that you were never really seen. You were never really appreciated for who you are. You were never really taken in. In fact, you were expected to be what I want you to be. Because the child had to become what the parent needed them to be seen.
Yeah.
And if they're not that person, if they're not always nice, always kind, always gentle, always caring, always there for everybody, always competent, they expect abandonment. They expect the parent will abandon them. So they will expect that their partners will abandon them as well. So keep these two words in mind as we move forward. Avoidant is rejection and pulling away because of that rejection, and ambivalent would be abandonment and therefore making sure that you please everybody so you don't get abandoned. Finally, then there's disorganized, which we won't be talking about much today, but disorganized is, we've talked before about reliable avoidant, reliable criticism, ambivalent,
Yeah.
reliable being able to please, that reliable overwhelm in the parents. You know that they're going to be overwhelmed, so you know how to please them so that they don't break down. There's other words for these too. We say that with avoidant attachment, they do something called auto-regulation. With ambivalent attachment, they do something called co-regulation. And they can't do auto-regulation. And with avoidant attachment, they can't do co-regulation. Also important words to remember. But with disorganized attachment, the harshest of the attachments, there is no reliable. So there is no way for the child to relate reliably to their world because their parent is not reliable. One day daddy comes home and he's a violent animal that wants to kill everybody. The next day he comes home with a smile on his face. The third day he does not come home. The fifth day he comes home and he now has another partner that he brings home, but mom is here. The sixth day, and so on and so on and so forth. There is no reliable way. So the child doesn't learn to be reliably avoidant or reliably pleasing, because whether they're avoidant, it doesn't matter. Whether they're pleased, it doesn't matter. It is disorganized. It is unreliable. It is disorganized. There's no organization. So that's very harsh, and the disorganized attachments often is synonymous with having borderline personality disorder and so on and so forth. Can result from anything from borderline personality disorder, which you may or may not know, but the borderline component consists of borderline schizophrenic, so borderline psychotic. So it might go from borderline personality disorder all the way to psychosis, which let's put that aside for now, and let's talk about the avoidant
and anxious.
So does that help? Does that explain it?
Yes, that does. Relate with what you said, don't know which way to go, being anxious, and it doesn't make. I understood how it was then. It was not an easy thing for me. It was not funny. So just for our viewers, maybe like 5 characteristics of each of them they can resonate with, so they can be able to say, okay, oh, this looks like me.
Yeah,
You know.
I think it's really important that when people want to know their attachment, that they do not look at behavior.
True.
Behavior does not show reliably what a person's attachment is like.
True.
Because A person who's avoidant and a person who's ambivalent and a person who's disorganized or a person who's secure can avoid a situation.
Yes.
Now this might make people confused. They go, well, I thought I was secure, but I avoid things. I thought I'm disorganized, I have borderline, but I avoid things. Maybe I'm avoidant. I thought someone, my psychologist says I'm ambivalent, but I avoided things, so I must be avoidant. We cannot look at behavior to denote attachment.
Okay.
We have to look at the reason for behavior to say what attachment is. Okay? It's the reason for the behavior, not the behavior itself. A secure avoid the situation because it's genuinely harmful to the insured.
Yes, true.
An avoidant person might avoid the situation because that might get a lot of attention and then get afraid that they might say something and get rejected.
Yeah.
And an ambivalent person might avoid the situation because they don't know how to please everybody in that situation, so they would avoid it.
True.
A disorganized person might avoid a situation because it's too nice and too safe, and they think there must be something manipulative going on behind the curtain. It can't possibly be that someone's out there. 4 people, 4 different attachments, same behavior.
So, what they should look at for it's the belief surrounding that behavior itself.
The reason for the behavior.
Itself, right? The reason for the behavior. So, maybe you're over testing or you're over calling because you feel you're going to be abandoned.
Right. Yeah.
Then for the one that would probably wouldn't see anything when maybe I'm in a relationship and she's pouring her heart on me, like, I love you, I want you to do this, and just freeze.
Yeah.
They just say, okay.
Yeah.
Or they just walk out because they don't have anything, they don't know what to say.
Exactly. And we have some questions here as well that I think add to our conversation. Puffing Girl online asks, you go ahead, Benjamin.
Yeah, is it possible to self-diagnose an attachment?
And it really is not. And a reliable way, the only reliable way to get a diagnosis, again, attachment is not a diagnosis, but to learn about your attachment is to do a 2-person process thing.
Okay.
Do a 2-person thing, something where you're sitting with a therapist, where you're sitting with a trained professional of some sorts that relates to you, and you see how you relate back, and you look at that way of relating together, you examine that relational way together, and you start learning about yourself. It's the only truly valid, reliable diagnosis way, if you will, for your attachment. The rest might be what Bia here is saying, which is what I find many of my people get really confused about.
Yeah, the attachment quiz. Is that really reliable?
There are some tests that are developed to determine, or how do you call it? Roughly what type of attachment you have, okay?
Oh.
But because when you do that test, who is answering? You are.
You alone.
And you cannot be more reliable on a test than you are on anything else. So, the tests, and particularly these online ones, they ask you questions. The questions may not be valid. The questions themselves may be a function of something else. They might actually be asking something else. I ask people sometimes, they say, oh, I think I might be avoidant, I say you might be avoidant. Well, answer this question, Do you tend to want to run away when you're afraid? When things are really dangerous? They say, yeah, I do want to run away. I say, do you sometimes, when you think that, everything is good and you're really happy, you want to stay? They go, yeah, maybe I'm secure. And I go, no, you're human. Yeah? It's human to run away when you're afraid and it's really dangerous. That's what most people do. And most people, when they're comfortable, they tend to stay. So these questions are what we call, they're not valid, they're not reliable. These tests are not valid and reliable. And people who answer these questions tend to be not very valid and reliable in knowing themselves. So then, you know, we think that we have like several attachments at the same time. It's impossible. It's impossible to have several attachments at the same time. Someone who has completely unreliable parents who are completely abusive, you know, one day, and then violence against you the next day, and then absolutely come home drunk and bash you up the third day, and then on the fourth day claim that it was your own fault, and on the fifth day are crying and apologizing because it was their fault. This person is not going to be mostly secure and sometimes disorganized, you know. You don't go sometimes borderline personality disorder, but, you know, sometimes you're pretty fine. It's not like that. Life is sometimes hard and life is sometimes easy, but we have a predominant attachment style, and we find that the error, how much people are unable to really diagnose themselves or figure it out, it's because of where we look, and the things that we look at are the wrong things to look at. But we don't know. We can't know more about ourselves than we know more about ourselves. And that's why we need a two-person process. We need a therapist, a life coach, a social worker, someone who sits opposite us and examines our pattern with us.
Yeah, that's
so I
true.
hope that answers
And,
the episode.
yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. Before any other one had a question, I wanted to ask, why is it that there is this pull subconsciously with with the anxious and the avoidant, you know, the ambivalent and the avoidant? There's always this subconscious pull. Like it feels like with them you just feel cool. You know, they give you this feeling, and you know it's not good sometimes. You know they don't feel your emotional cup that full, but you want to try to say it's gonna work. I need to
Here
stick around.
is, and here is why psychology is such a interesting field to be working in, and here is why human beings are such important people to investigate ourselves. It's this very notion, right? What we're talking about there, women, is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, hypocrisy, hypocrisy. That's what we're talking about. The hypocrite, the eternal hypocrite. I know, but don't do this, but I do it. I shouldn't do this, but I do. Right? Here is the ultimate split between the human conscious mind and the human unconscious mind. When we are saying what we should do, what we ought to do, what we need to do, we're thinking logically. We're thinking as the adults that we are. Our adult brain is triggered. When your patients or your clients come to you and they get advice, you give them your brain advice, you know, your education advice. You give them the best of you, the best of you. When you have children, you give them the best of you. You know, your child comes and says, Dad, should I think, you know, when you're healthy, your child says, Dad, should I think that I'm useless? You go, no, you should not think that at all. But I think that about me. I think that about me. But you shouldn't think that about you at all. But I think that about me. What is this hypocrisy, right? What is this hypocrisy that we are pulled towards people, even though we know we would not recommend a friend of us to be pulled towards that person, and we know it's bad for us to be pulled towards that person? What is that about? So that is, these patterns that we're describing, these avoidant patterns, the ambivalent patterns, the disorganized patterns, the secure patterns, they're established when you are a child. This is your child brain. This is now goes back into your child brain, which, you know, Freud used to call the unconscious mind. And this is now your child brain talking, your emotion centers talking. This is your what happens to your brain when you're not aware of those things happening to your brain. So when you're thinking, I should not be with that person, right? And then they come close to you, and now your child brain is kicking in. Your trauma brain is kicking in. And your trauma brain is saying, go there, go there. You must go there. You must go there. You must go there. So you go there, right? But when you can't see, you can't review what your brain is doing, and you can't look at it, observe it, every bit of it, stop it, slow it down, make it short, you fall for it. You succumb to it. In a way, it's like you have a little hurtful parasite in your mind that can only do things to you when you don't see it. And unfortunately, as we know, we are not trained, human beings are not trained to look at things without. We are trained to look at work, trained to look at society, sometimes trained to look at money, trained to look at TV, trained to look at, listen to music. We are not trained to listen to ourselves. No? It's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny, when you said that, most of what you say, I do relate with them a lot. I do, and I see the patterns a lot. Maybe because I used to be ambivalent and dismissive, so, and I see patterns a lot. So I have friends that when I ask them, okay, you were in a relationship before, and they say yes, and by the time I ask for the first boyfriend, the second boyfriend, the third boyfriend, I've already seen the pattern. I'm like, but so before I'll be like, why do you keep doing this? And before I understand the attachment style, and before I started working on myself and became a better person, I'll be like, why do I keep doing this all the time? I know deep down. So it was later on I understood that there was this belief, like you were saying, that this pattern that have been created right from childhood, this belief that I've been operating under, I've been operating from, there was this I need to pursue love to make it work. I need someone to come. And this idea of I need to fix somebody, I need to work, I need to show myself that I need to be friends, and I just laugh when I see them. And and sometimes I want to, like, for those that are here, if there's a possible way, where they can, for the ones, no, there are some, they're already in a marriage, they're already married to someone like this. So how do they cope? I know the first advice most times I tell them is to, first of all, try to understand. So I want to know how would you advise somebody to cope being married or being in a serious relationship with someone that is avoidant and they are ambivalent or anxious, as you talk about.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really difficult because, like we've just talked about, with kind of like hypocrisy, if you will, or as Puffin Girl is suggesting, that it sounds deliberate, but contradictory behavior, or call it wherever you want, right? There's a one side that makes you think in one way, that you know what is good for you, and then this other side that is pulling you towards all these other behaviors, right? So if we just look at that, and we look at this idea that somehow along the way, when you are anxious, dismissive, or if you will, when you are ambivalent, right? When you're ambivalent and you see somebody who is avoidant, right? They pull on you unintentionally. No one's doing anything intentionally. Let's just point that out. No one's trying to hurt anybody. No one's out to get anybody. No one here is out to, there are those people. There are those people, yes. but they are so far and few between. Let's not focus on them, right? Let's not focus on narcissistic and psychopathic tendencies. Let's just put that out for a while and focus on most of the people. Most of the available people in the market, most of the available people in the dating market, most of the single people in the dating market, what attachment style would they have? They would have an avoidant attachment style, right? It makes sense, right? They are commitment avoidant. They're avoidant of closeness. So they would be a big part of the market that are available for dating, right? So here you are now ambivalent, and you are designated by your childhood experiences to please. But you are not just designated to please, but also you are designated to, in a sense, from your childhood brain, to fail in that pleasing, in a sense. Right? That, you know, you want to please, but then you want to please these people who cannot ultimately be with you. They can't be with you. You're meant to take care of them. So this is the idea, to take care of somebody, even though you're actually the one taking care of yourself. So you're the dependent person who wants to now take care of somebody. Now, what do we know for somebody who's avoidant? That's the last thing they want. Right? The last thing they want is somebody to actually want to come inside and get to know them from inside. Right? So then what happens is this very issue of, here you have the avoidant person who says, I'd rather run away. And then you have this sort of ambivalent person who says, don't run away from me.
True.
So what the avoidant people tend to find is that when they're running away, secure people sort of go, all right, off you go then. Yeah? I'm going to, off you go then. Right? And when ambivalent people find that they want to be this sort of dependent and overly sort of attached and overly sort of pleasing the secure person, the ambivalent person tends to go, oh, no, this person is just like, they're too independent. No, it's not working. You know, the secure person again tends to go, oh, you're just way too dependent. Like, way too, it's just too hard. So they go away. But when you find that avoidant, like the avoidant person goes, hey, you're not letting me go. You're not letting me go. There must be something special here, right? You're not letting me go. Everyone else just lets me go. You don't. And the ambivalent person here is saying, oh, look at that. I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. Then you must be special. You must be special. No one else was able to get through you, but I could. If I just get through this barrier, then I'd be with you forever. Then you'd want me forever. You would never leave me again. Right?
True.
So then
that
take that and amplify that, and then now say they're married. Now say they're married, right? And now the push and pull is happening between the two of them constantly. The married ambivalent person is trying to constantly please their wife, their husband, their partner, what name you know, they're trying to constantly please them, and their partner is moving away, moving away, moving away. So there's this constant sense of closeness, distance, and closeness and distance. And when the avoidant person comes really close, then they find out that the ambivalent person finds, you're not enough. You're not enough for me. You can't, you're not being able to give me the answer. You don't, because nobody can really be enough instead of you. You need yourself there and the other person there, right? No one can do it instead of you, right? So even when the ambivalent person tries to go closer to the ambivalent person, they still find, I'm still not enough. You know what? And what did we say about the avoidant person? What's their fear? Their fear is that they are somehow faulty, that they are somehow flawed. Now their relationship constantly reminds them that they are flawed. Because the ambivalent person says, come close, come close, come close. You're not enough. Come close, come close. You're not enough. Right?
Yeah.
Conversely now, from the ambivalent person's view, they just want the avoidant person to be really close But as soon as they are not. They're not close enough. They're not close enough. They don't get it. They're not close enough. You know what? To hell with this. You're never going to be close enough. You're never going to get it. You're never going to understand me. You're never going to appreciate me. Right?
Yeah.
So what do we do? What do we do for partners who have such an ingrained, they love each other, of course. They love each other. They want to be with each other. A lot of people like that. You know, a lot of people have kids and they have a lot of reasons to be with each other. When times are good, things are good. When times are good, things are good, right? So what do you say? What do you do for that? You know, what do you do when patterns are ingrained and no one can see it? Well, evidence says, science says, you got to take yourself to therapy.
No, truthfully.
You gotta take yourself to some form of therapy, whether it's a form of counseling. Take yourself to your pastor, or take yourself to whatever. You know, there are a lot of people doing counseling type roles, right? Whether it's your shaman, or it's your pastor, or it's your psychologist, or it's your life coach, or it's your counselor, it's your social worker. You need to be working with somebody to help you see these patterns. You need to be working with someone who's an expert in attachment to help you see these patterns.
And you know, one thing I've noticed is those that are avoidant, they really don't want to seek for help. Most I don't know if it's general with all of them, but it seems like most of them, they don't want to seek for help. You know, the one that is so ambivalent wants the help, but the other ones, like, no way.
You know what the horrible thing is as well? Often, I used to do a lot of couples counseling back in the day, and often I found, and I'm a supervisor, so I train other psychologists, right? And I found one of the big problems is also, you know, by the time the avoidant person goes to counseling and the ambivalent person goes to counseling, the problem that often happens is that the counselor, if they're not good at what they do, if they're not really good at attachment, they bond with the ambivalent person, because the ambivalent person is really good at pleasing, remember?
Yes.
They please the counselor, and they look like they're trying everything. They're the ones doing everything, and you know, and the counselor goes, "Oh, you're such a good person," and now the counselor and the ambivalent person are just sitting there having a field day with each other, right? And that becomes even more punitive for the avoidant person, because again, they're on the outside. So of course, whether they've tried therapy or they think that it's not going to work, they often end up in bad therapy where the counselor aligns with the ambivalent person together and they go against the avoidant person. They just make it like you're the problem, you know? So of course they don't want to take the therapy because it's projected or it's expected bad experiences, or it is a bad experiences from things like that in the past, where therapists have just gone, "Oh, you don't seem like you want to do work," or, you know, "You don't seem committed," or, "You don't seem like you want to be here," or, you know, yada, yada, whatever. Or just gone, "Well, I can't deal with it," or even being outright like frustrated at their patients and, you know, said some really horrible things.
That's really true. You know, there's this thing I noticed with people, couples, you know, the avoidant sometimes, like we rightly said, you know, when they want to process things, emotions, and they most times become overwhelmed and they would just keep quiet, or they might outrightly dismiss the ambivalent and say, "I don't want to talk about this, you know, I don't want to," you know, there's a way they just, and the ambivalent wants to talk. Wouldn't you want me to hear what I want to say? Let me just, and they
want to talk. They can talk for hours and hours.
They don't have a problem talking. They're like, "Just let me talk." So I was talking to a couple recently. I told them that I understand you as the dismissive, you know, sometimes you just want to, because you'll be like, I know where she's going to, I know the end. I say, "Okay, do you think you're actually jumping to conclusions right now?" She might have been saying, you know, people often do that, you know, like they just, I know what, there's a friend of mine, you know, she would say, "Yes, I just needed to cut you to the end." I'm like, "No, let me finish." You don't know where I'm going to, because I said I'm going to Australia for like 3 times, and the 4th time I came and said I'm going to, you just, you said you're going to Australia the other day. I said, "No, I might have changed my mind. You don't know. So allow me speak. Let me finish. Don't jump to conclusions first. Just calm down. So that's why I don't advise them most times to say, I know sometimes you feel you know where they are going to, but give them the benefit of a doubt. And that's what you were saying. Can you just give me the benefit of a doubt and hear what I want to say? And the next thing I'm like, I told her that I know you want him to respond immediately when you finish bearing out your mind, but do you for once think that maybe it's kind of overwhelming to him and he wants to process it? I noticed that recently. Someone, I think I thought I had finished my journey. I didn't know I was still in the journey. So someone, we're talking something that was emotional, and I was processing like, okay, who is speaking right now? Is it my dismissive side that is, because I know dismissive wise, when you talk about emotions, I first of all dismiss before I come back to say, okay. So I noticed that day that, oh, wow, I should have actually asked her to give me time to process, so that I should have filtered it all through because I was a fearful avoidant, I should have filtered it from my anxious aspect, filtered it from my dismissive aspect, and say, okay, no, this is then I should have been able to come up with a good answer. So I use that aspect to say, some ladies, they want to talk, and when their partner is not giving them that attention that time, they are so pissed off, and what would you say to such people, such ambivalent people? Then before we talk about the dismissive aspect, so what would you say to such ambivalent people that are so anxious, they want to express, which is good to express yourself, but when you want to express and the person is not resonating, is not giving you back, you feel annoyed, then you start catastrophizing everything, you jump back everything, your emotions start flying. So what would you say to someone like that?
What we're talking about there is something that we call projection. So in psychedynamic terms, projection. It's basically called other things in other therapies, mind reading or jumping to conclusions or overgeneralizing or whatever you might call it. And I think it's like everything else, and I think you found a solution there yourself, in the sense that you need to first notice that it's happening, whether, you're a man or a woman or, non-binary gender, you need to find yourself that it's happening for you when you're with your partner, and then to basically what we say, block it, stop it from happening, and then do something that you would want to do instead of letting your child brain take over and think, okay, so next time this happens, I'm going to catch it, I'm not going to do it, and then I'm going to immediately do what I want to do instead, what I value to do, what I would like to do, how I would like to be treated works sometimes, how I would say to somebody what they should do works sometimes. It's an active process. There's no button you press and then you stop doing it.
True.
It's a process of, I'm going in conversation here, I got to watch myself, I got to check myself, I got to monitor myself and see what's happening. There's no automatic process that's going to happen for you. Secure people have a healthy automatic process. That's the whole reason. Their parents live in such good childhoods that they, they're automatic. Now it's good. It's a healthy automatic. But when you're avoidant and you're ambivalent or disorganized, your automatic is not healthy. And that's why there are problems, because your automatic is going to be really hurtful to you, and is going to be really hurtful possibly to other people based on how ill that attachment pattern makes you. So it's like you have to keep an eye on it so that it does not become automatic. Now, once you've done it over and over, manually, over and over and over and over again, you've done it. You've stopped it from happening. You've done it. You stopped it. You took over. You, the person. One was the lie. The other one. Once you've done it enough, your automatic changes. There are studies that show that your automatic brain patterns change. Instead of going through these short circuits, for example, the HPA axis, the hypopituitary axis, for example, instead of going through that short route, it goes through a longer route, a route that goes from your child brain to your adult brain. Now then, over many times of doing that, your automatic changes to an adult automatic, or a healthy automatic, or at least an automatic that you choose, as opposed to the one that you were given by your parents.
Okay, that's true. That's really true. So, what would you say to the dismissive person, that gets so overwhelmed when their partner comes back and they want to talk about their day, they want to talk about what happened, they want to express, want to bear it all, and they just this, I don't want to talk, and we know that it's always necessary to acknowledge people's feelings, but most people don't know that the first things first is you want to acknowledge the person's feeling, because you're not there. You're not wearing the shoe. You understand? So you want to acknowledge the person's feeling. And what would you say to a dismissive person that doesn't have that pattern of, acknowledging, saying, okay, I know you want to talk right now. We know this is the healthy way, I know you want to talk right now, and I'm not really in the mood to talk about it, but can you maybe give me like some hours, or maybe on a certain day, maybe tomorrow, we can talk about this, mostly when it's emotional. What would you say to such person?
Well, I think, first of all, you point out really well there that when it's about someone's mood, we need to respect that, someone's mood really means that, I'm scanning my brain and I'm thinking now's not the time for me to talk about this, right? But then there's also the question of how long do you wait? Yeah, how often are you in this mood? Because I need to talk to you,
Yeah.
and you've been in this mood for 15 years. You've been in this mood.
I'll say something. I'll say something when you're done.
I'm starting to think that it's not a mood, right? Because a mood would change.
Yeah.
It changes, 100 times over a day, possibly, unless you have a depressive mood problem or something. But it seems like your mood never changes. I'm starting to sense that after 15 years, it's not a mood thing. This may be avoidance, right? So you gotta keep an eye on it is the first thing. And to bring awareness to your partner. We have to dare to bring awareness. Our partner saying, I'm not in the mood. And you can say, all right, well, seems like when I bring up this topic that sometimes you're not in the mood to talk about it. Is there a time that you think you would talk to me about this? Is there a particular time of the day that you think that you would have the mood to talk about it? And of course, an avoidant person, they might say yes or no, but they don't. It's not about a mood. It's about an attachment. There's no time. They'll say, yeah, tomorrow, 8 o'clock. You talk to them tomorrow, 8 o'clock, same thing happens again. Suddenly, they don't want to talk about it. No, it's an itch, it's a scratch, it's a back, remember, they learned to avoid, right? But then at some point, someone's gotta talk about the reality here and say, look, it seems like every time we talk about this, it's a mood, it's a scratch, it's a pain, it's an ache, it's something. It's really important to me, and I really need you to hear me out. This is becoming a barrier in our relationship. I need to be heard on this. You need to clearly tell me what you need to be heard on this one. I need to know about this one over and over and over again. And when it doesn't happen, suggest that you go into some form of resolution, coordination, counseling. And if they don't want to do that, again, with avoidant wouldn't, that's your sign now. That's clearly stated to you. Now what you're going to do? What are you going to do now? Now, if you decide to stay in that, then that's the life you've chosen. And that's the way life is going to be for you. Expect no different, until that person changes and that person works on themselves and that person goes to, for example, a life coach or a psychologist or someone and does something about it. This is the way they are going to be. I always say to people, do not expect that people's attachment patterns will change automatically. But talk to people about making changes, see if they are willing to make those changes. And if they are not, have no fear. They will not. It is when they will that they can, and they will. They will only change when they will to change. Until then, nothing's going to change. This is not me. This is science over and over and over again. More people that are born with a disorganized attachment die with a disorganized attachment. We can track disorganized attachment back thousands of years through what we call intergenerational trauma. So it means
Wow.
who have borderline today can track back several generations to their grandfathers, their great-great-grandfathers, and even documents that they have written, great-great-grandmothers or whatever, so on and so forth, where the abuse can be clearly seen throughout these generations. If no one makes that change, the change ain't coming. The only person who can make that change is you. Now, here's another really good thing. Science says when you want to make that change, you're likely to be successful. That's the good thing. Science is that open. When you want to make that change, if you have available help, if you have the available support and help, you can more likely make that change than not. You know, there's something like 70% of people who want to go to therapy, want to do something about it, really deeply desire to make a change, do make a change. That's 70% of people who, you know, we're talking about across the spectrum, for people who have been severely abused their entire lives to not, you know. So there are, of course, you know, therapy is not perfect. It's not a perfect process, and there are still things that we need to understand about why it doesn't work and when it doesn't work. Up and go, right? Hell yeah, yeah. There's some other questions that, if you don't mind looking at that, there was one there, but like, yeah. Whereas, is it common for two ambivalent attachment styles to be in a romantic relationship? Yes, it's called a codependent relationship. Let's have a look at that as well. We have to see that. It's called codependency as opposed to dependency. It becomes two people trying to please each other. It's a mess. But have a look at it. Codependent relationships.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I think I was in one like that before. It was very funny.
It's really, I mean, we talk about it, it's funny, so we need to keep an energy up. We're on IGTV. But of course, it's not funny, right? It's very hurtful. It's painful all the way around, and everyone gets hurt. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here talking about these things, because we're here to help find ways to reduce the hurt and harm they experience in their lives.
And, you know, there's a question I want to ask, but before that, there's this thing, you know, recently I used to see posts that would say, you know, people just want to be in a relationship without the commitment, while the other partners want to be in a relationship with commitment. The same thing we're talking about, you know, just for reference sake, you know, it's still the same pattern. I'm just trying to talk to those online so they could see that pattern. And when someone wants to be with you and they don't want commitment, they don't want a tag, they want to enjoy the benefits of being with you without the tag. While you on the other aspect, maybe you're the anxious person or you're the ambivalent person, you know, you're wired to, you know, what are we? What's going on? What's happening? What are we doing? You know, and it will be like, let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Let's and it's still going for a year. Let's see how it goes. I had issues with that so much. By the time I had so much issues, why can't you just say it? Just say it. Just say it. Do you want me or you don't want me? And you know, they just freeze that moment. They just and they freeze. They don't say anything. So
look,
like I would want to.
Yeah, I had a bunch of posts on something called filtering. Check it out. It's not official, it's not scientific, it's just what I call it, all right? But it's this thing that I've seen, this phenomenon that I suppose I've seen happen so many times, and I just call it filtering. And in essence, what happens is that this unconscious part of your brain, it basically filters out people who would be committal, right? Because if they're committal, you know what happens is you're focused on this person you're talking about. Meanwhile, while you're trying to get her commitment, you know, you're going, oh, please, 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 commit to me, commit to me. 10 women, in your case, walked past you who would die to commit to you. Okay?
Very true.
And you know what your brain does? Your brain just goes, whatever. Whatever.
very, very true. Not this one.
Love you on day one, you know, and you're not that special. You can't possibly be loved by somebody immediately. Now, move it on, move it along, move it along. And then this one woman comes, yeah, in your case, of course, you say you're dating women. This one woman comes, like in The Matrix, if you've seen The Matrix, that movie, you know, there's a woman in red in that movie, a woman in red, and, you know, everyone else is wearing black, right? Everyone else is wearing dark clothes, and this woman walks with really bright red clothes, and you see her. That's the woman you see. And guess what? She doesn't want to commit. You know?
You know, this thing you just said, actually, it's a very truthful thing, and I notice that a lot. You see people say, I want, it's not the one I keep pursuing. I'm like, but to be honest, you know, I know there were times that back then there were ladies I was chasing, and there were those I knew in my mind that if I said, okay, can we? It's going to be a yes. But I'm like, nah, no, and chase this one. Work on this one. So you keep giving yourself more work. Like, let me chase this one.
All these women, if you're a woman, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a woman and you date women, or you're a man and you date men, or it doesn't really matter if you have in between. Your suitable partner is out there, and they're waiting for you, and they're more likely than not, you've more likely in your life, and quote me on this, all right? When you have an avoidant attachment, ambivalent attachment, or disorganized attachment, you have unintentionally filtered out about 1 or 2 million more suitable partners for you than the ones you actually dated.
True.
Are you with me? Because think about it. The majority of the population, about 66% of the population, are secure. Okay? So for each avoidant person you dated, right? For each one avoidant person you've dated, you possibly or likely to record 6 secure, suitable partners who could be, you know, at least if we just look at no other factors like that. So filtering is a horrible thing that makes everyone suitable to you shrink, sexually great, boring, and not appropriate and not suitable, while it really highlights and gives really big color and vividness and life and passion and chemistry to the person who's not suitable for you.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if I can't. I didn't remember when we started.
Sorry, and BFTC, chemistry is not a real thing. It is just attachment styles. There you go.
I don't remember when. How many minutes do you have?
23 seconds, 22, 21.
23 seconds, 21. Oh, I think we should just save this one. I don't know, you know. I don't know, because, you know, you said we'll keep going. So if it's possible, we should just save this one and maybe come for just like 10 minutes to talk about